Most diseases have a cure. Somewhere, a doctor, a hospital, a treatment that brings the patient back from the edge. But what happens when the cure is worse than anything the disease could have done? What happens when the doctor offering it has been walking the earth since the Black Death and has never once succeeded? This is the story of SCP-049. And if you haven't seen what happened with SCP-096, SCP-106, or SCP-3008 yet, those are on this channel too. Each one just as disturbing as this one. The discovery. SCP-049 was found in 1990s Stockholm, standing motionless in the basement of an abandoned hospital that had been condemned for nearly 40 years. He wore the full plague doctor's uniform, the long black coat, the leather gloves, the wide-brimmed hat, and the beaked mask. The kind doctors in the 1600s stuffed with herbs to keep out what they believed was bad air. Workers demolishing the building found him standing perfectly still in a corner of the old morgue. They assumed he was a mannequin, a leftover prop from some old exhibit. Then he spoke. His first words, in formal, archaic English, were an apology. He said he was sorry it had taken so long to find the cure. He said the plague doctor wished to help. The first incident. The Foundation moved him to containment quickly, but not before he had already touched one of the demolition workers, a man named Lucas Bergstrom. Lucas had complained earlier that day of a headache. Nothing serious, the kind of thing anyone might mention in passing. SCP-049 placed a gloved hand on his chest and said only one word. Diseased. Within seconds, Lucas collapsed. His skin turned gray, then ash white. His eyes clouded over. He stood up roughly 90 seconds later, but he was no longer Lucas. He moved differently, spoke in a flat, hollow tone, and when asked his name, he simply repeated the word the doctor had said. Diseased. The thing that used to be Lucas Bergstrom attacked the nearest living person within the minute, and it took 4 armed guards to bring it down. Autopsy later showed no heartbeat, no brain activity, and organs that had been liquefying from the inside for what the medical examiner estimated was days, despite Lucas having been alive and healthy that same morning. The pattern. Over the following decades, SCP-049 has been tested, studied, and allowed limited contact under controlled conditions more times than the Foundation likely wants to admit. The result is always the same. He touches a person, declares them diseased, and within 2 minutes, that person reanimates as what researchers internally call a zombie, though the official term is far more clinical. The reanimated are not undead in any traditional sense. They are something else entirely. Bodies moving without the person who once lived in them, driven by a single function: to find others, to touch them, to spread whatever it is that SCP-049 believes he is curing. Researcher Voss. In 2003, a senior researcher named Dr. Elena Voss requested an extended interview session with SCP-049, hoping to understand the nature of what he called the disease. For 3 hours, the conversation was calm. SCP-049 spoke with what staff described as genuine sorrow about the suffering he believed he was constantly surrounded by. Sorrow for humanity. Sorrow that no one understood what he could see. Near the end of the session, he grew quiet and then said something that was never fully explained. He said, "The disease is closer to you than you think, doctor. You carry more of it than most." Dr. Voss laughed it off at the time. 3 days later, she collapsed during a routine briefing. No prior symptoms, no warning signs. Medical staff could not identify a cause. She was placed under observation, and by the 4th day, her condition had deteriorated to the point where containment specialists were placed on standby outside her hospital room, just in case. She survived barely after an unexplained recovery that doctors could never account for. When asked later what SCP-049 may have meant, she refused to discuss it. Her notes from that period, recovered after her transfer to a different research division, contained a single line written and underlined 3 times. He knew before I did. What he says about the cure. SCP-049 has stated consistently across every documented interview spanning over 2 decades that he is close, that the cure for the disease he sees in nearly every living person is almost complete, that what the Foundation perceives as reanimation is not the disease at all, but the early imperfect stage of the cure itself, a stage he insists he can refine if given enough time, enough subjects, enough trust. He has never been right. Every single person he has touched and called diseased has reanimated as one of the hollow, violent things researchers are forced to terminate. And yet he seems, genuinely, to believe each time will be different. The quiet ones. Former containment staff who work directly with SCP-049 describe something unsettling that rarely makes it into the official reports. He is polite, soft-spoken. He thanks the guards who escort him. He asks about their families. One former staff member, who left the Foundation in 2015 and has never returned to anything resembling that line of work, said in an interview given anonymously that the worst part of working near SCP-049 wasn't the violence, wasn't the reanimated, wasn't even the sound they made. It was the way he looked at you sometimes, through that mask, with what felt like genuine pity, like he already knew something about your body that you hadn't found out yet. What remains unknown. To this day, no one knows what SCP-049 actually is. Whether he was once human, transformed by something during the plague years he claims to remember, whether he is something else entirely, wearing the shape of a doctor because that's the role he believes he was given. The Foundation has never determined where he came from before Stockholm, what created him, or whether the disease he keeps referring to is something real that the rest of humanity simply cannot perceive. What is known is this: he is patient. He has been patient for centuries, and he believes completely that one day the cure will work. Containment staff have one standing rule above all others when it comes to SCP-049. If he ever says the word diseased while looking directly at you, do not wait for an explanation. Get as far away as you possibly can, as fast as you can move, because by the time you understand what he meant, it will already be too late to matter. That's SCP-049. One of the most unsettling entries in the Foundation's records, not because of what he does, but because of how certain he is that he's helping. If this kind of story keeps you up at night, this channel has